This is Media Sales Mastery, the podcast for media sales professionals. In each episode, we bring you information, insights, and ideas from some of the industry's top thought leaders. Connect with us to help pick the topic and guide the show.
This is Media Sales Mastery, the podcast for media sales professionals. I'm your host, Jamie Wood. Okay, our topic for this episode is all about simplifying the complex sale. Now, there is one trend that seems to be pretty universal in media sales, and that is this: the products that we sell and the customer base that we sell into is becoming increasingly diverse and complex. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this. A couple of them just off the top of my head, like the media and advertising market is maturing. It's becoming more sophisticated. Legacy publishers like print, like radio, like television are digitizing, and as a consequence, are also really diversifying their revenue bases. They're making investments into new digital products that are meant to complement their core offering. And companies are just being acquired. Companies are merging. Companies are buying companies. What happens as a result of that typically is new products start to get integrated or absorbed by an existing sales team, and suddenly they're going to market with a multi-dimensional offering. So here's even a crude example from my experience. I spent just over 11 years in commercial radio. I went from selling one radio station with a very straightforward commercial offering to selling 13 stations nationally, 24 websites, 15 social media accounts, live music event sponsorship, a podcast network, streaming video and audio, digital radio, esports, performance media, and a daily deal aggregator. So, this presents a lot of opportunity. This is actually a good thing. It also presents a lot of challenges. Our guest today is Clare Whiteman. Now, I will let her share details of her background and experience, but she is the absolute perfect person to speak on this very real challenge. I'm really looking forward to this one, so let's get into it now.
The first five.
Clare, welcome.
Thank you. Long time listener, first time contributor. I'm glad we're finally doing this. I'm excited.
What's cool about this topic, we're obviously talking about a very specific, very niche topic, which is the increasing number of media assets that media sales professionals are being expected to sell. And I don't actually know how I came across you specifically, but I remember looking at your LinkedIn and just seeing that your background in media, and specifically what you're doing at the moment, just felt like you would be a really interesting person to talk to about this. Can you just give us a little bit of a overview of your experience in media, and like a particular focus on, that integrated sell across a lot of different assets?
Yeah, sure. No worries. So a bit about my experience to date. I've been working in media sales within the entertainment sector for just over 15 years. My career first kicked off in Brisbane at Network 10 before I jumped ship to Austereo prior to emerging with Southern Cross. But yeah, my passion's always been in sponsorship and cross-platform solutions. And, I'm happy to admit it. I'm still a sucker for advertising. I'll be watching a commercial thinking I never knew I always needed that. So yeah, I'm a little bit obsessed, but as a consumer, I definitely saw the benefits of using multiple publisher assets and touch points to bring to life a solution. And personally, on a career front, cross-platform selling definitely looked a little bit more exciting than selling spots and dots and kind of getting to that elusive RNF type goal. So when an opportunity presented itself to sell sport and major tentpole program sponsorships for Regional 7, I was happy to pack my bags and move from Brizzy to Sydney. And that's when my integrated sales career really started. So the interest was always there, but I think we can all acknowledge sometimes with cross-platform integrated sales, it's kind of hard to get kind of a foot in the door. So in the meantime, when I was probably 3 years into my career, I recognized what I wanted to do long term. And I decided to go back to uni and do my master's in integrated marketing communication, IMC. So when that opportunity at Seven came about, I kind of had the theoretical, experience or knowledge, and I could have combined it with the practical to take that next step. But I worked in TV for a few years, but sponsorships were a little bit more simpler to sell back in the day. Generally, it was like a highly rated TV show that we were pushing and a predetermined on-air magazine and digital asset package that was kind of packaged up nicely with a bow, maybe a bit of creative copywriting just to package it up a little bit more nicely. And it was an easier package to get your head around in market because only minor challenges and minor changes were allowed. But I worked in TV for about 5 years, but then I kind of took my passion for content to a whole new level. And I moved over to cinema and the movies game. So About 8 years ago, I made the move to Val Morgan, which you know is the cinema advertising sales house owned by Hoyts, to head up their strategy department. Our role, the department was actually called Brand Fit. Pretty funny name when you think about it. And our role was to work with the sales reps to package up cross-platform solutions across their cinema, outdoor, and digital product offerings to brands that were a strong brand fit for them. But my current role still sits within the movie and cinema landscape, but I work for an entertainment and leisure business called EVT, and that stands for Entertainment, Ventures and Travel. So we own a wide range of Australia and New Zealand's largest like cinemas, theatres, restaurants, bars, hotels, and even Thredbo. So my current role oversees the partnerships and sales department for the entertainment division. So everything event cinema, movies, moonlight cinema, and everything wonderful in between.
You know, it's kind of cool reflecting on that. So it's always been kind of an area of specialization for you. You made a good point there, though, around some of it is like, I'm not going to say off the shelf, but it's like certain sponsorships or opportunities are pretty rigid in what they are in terms of just packaging a lot of things together. And then it sounds to me like, you know, you're maybe now dealing more in that bespoke kind of space where it's really kind of being built for purpose for brands.
Yeah, to your point, like, you know, when I reflect on the last couple of years, I think it's pretty obvious that we're working in a more fragmented media landscape than ever. And it's definitely not going anywhere. And you know, that one size fits all approach is dead on arrival. I think we all know there's so much competition out there, and a client can kind of tell when you've just dusted off a response that you've given to someone in a similar category and presented it to them. And they're not going to come back to you if you do that. So I think, working for a business that was shut over 20 weeks over the last 2 years, it's so important to our team that, you know, when a brief or an opportunity comes our way, that we absolutely nail it. And as a business, we're pretty firm on not putting together those cookie cutter solutions. So everything we do and every product with an integrated sell, we know the role of the product. And the good thing about that is we're not having to repitch things every year. We're just tweaking the responses, which is saving a bit of time in the long run.
It's such a good call. Like, not that anybody wants to harp too much on the COVID years, if you will, but working in a very similar space in out of home, you know, the channel was materially impacted. And what I suppose a byproduct of that, and I was at a client dinner last night having this chat, but like the commercial acumen of the team is a lot sharper after the last couple of years because you just can't afford not to be really on point with what you're doing. And particularly when you're selling those integrated solutions, like it was actually really handy because I think even when I was in radio prior to that at the start of COVID, you had these other products that still had relevance when maybe your core product was impacted. So it's actually been kind of a real, I guess the headwinds have actually been handy. It's probably a good setup for the main topic.
Media Sales Mastery.
Because on paper, having more products to sell is obviously a good thing. I kind of refer to it as you've got more customer contact occasions, you've got more reasons to go and engage the market. I guess what I want to talk about, though, is just acknowledging the challenges that come with that. So in your view, in the entirety of your career, because you've always kind of been in this lane, like what are some of those major challenges for media sales professionals when it comes to incorporating new products into their existing offering?
Oh, okay. Good question. And to your point, as again, I've definitely got PTSD from the last couple of years. We won't talk about it, but we've definitely seen shifts in the way we go about our everyday lives and how we consume media. And media fragmentation is definitely speeding up, but there's probably two key challenges that I still have to overcome daily, and I think media professionals have to overcome. But I think it's important to acknowledge it is a really positive thing to have more products to sell, okay? Like, who wants to be talking about that same product day in, day out? You couldn't do it. You just do your head in. But I think a challenge for many media professionals is that they can feel overwhelmed when it may feel as though they're continually being overloaded with a new shiny product in that kind of never-ending publisher toolbox. And sometimes, you know, I see sales reps, they come up to me and say, well, what's the priority? Is it the less shiny toy from last month? Or is it the new shiny toy this month? Like, what does success look like?
Such a good point. And I remember even in our own business at times, that's always been a constant. There's always this constant trade-off of like, either everything's important, therefore nothing is, or it's like you've got all these initiatives on the go and you're like overlaying them. And I think to your point, like just kind of going and having that conversation and going like from a sequencing point of view, which one of these things is the absolute priority versus, I guess the analogy that I use a lot is like throwing 20 tennis balls out and wondering why nobody can catch anything versus like one football. I'm heartened to hear that that's a common problem, is what I'm probably saying.
Absolutely. And to your point, that's exactly what happens. As sales professionals, we all want to be the first person to sell that new shiny product. You want to have the win. So what happens is this new shiny toy ends up being on every single response for that business for 2 months, with the attempt of just being sold. But what happens is the shiny toy isn't really a shiny toy because it doesn't feel special anymore because it's been pitched to everybody. So I think the key takeout when we talk about one of the challenges with that new shiny toy is to kind of play the long game, kind of play it like dating. You don't show all your best tricks in the first couple of dates. You got to kind of understand what you're selling. And I think the best salespeople, the master sales skill that they probably have is one of connecting. It's understanding the goal of the product and what success looks like for it, and waiting for the right moment to pitch it to a client so it actually works, and it solves that solution with the brief that they're actually answering. So, yeah, my key takeout from that is just definitely ask questions and don't just be pitching something for the sake of pitching it and getting a quick win. But I think the other challenge that I always see with, businesses that I've been working for, Val Morgan, when I started working there, they didn't have a digital offering. It was just out of home and cinema, which was a little bit easier to package up at the time. But I think the key challenge with media professionals is kind of selling a product that sits outside of your core skill set. And I've heard people talk about it a lot, in other podcasts that you've done and other topics. But, I'll never forget my first job, at Channel 10. I'll never forget they called us up to the boardroom on the top floor, back up on the mountain, and they were like, hey, we've got this idea. We're actually going to be launching a website. So you're going to be now selling TV and a website. And at the time, I did 1 unit in my business degree in digital advertising. So I was thinking to myself, I'm not a digital expert. I've done 6 months in TV. How am I going to package up both of these things into one simple sell? But I'll never forget there was one rep that had really great success with it. And it seems really obvious now. And it goes back to connecting the dots. He knew his client target market wanted to connect with Big Brother, which was the biggest show back then. Remember how huge that was back at Channel 10?
Massive, yeah.
10. It was huge. But so what he did is he put commercial, spots in the Big Brother show. So, and then he also had a billboard spot driving people to the Network 10 Big Brother website to read more about the housemates, all thanks to a particular brand. Super simple, but at the time it blew my mind. So I think the key takeout is, prior to COVID, I saw a lot of people specializing in their career, a lot of specialists. But what I've seen is the people that have kind of come out of COVID and have done, quite well for themselves and continue to do that is they've become just subject matter generalists. They know enough about everything. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be specialists at the media agencies that know what they're doing. There's digital specialists, there's TV, there's out of home. So you don't need to be a subject matter expert on everything that you sell. You just need to know how to connect the dots.
Yeah, and it's funny, like there's 2 things you said there that are worth unpacking, and I'm definitely guilty of this as a sales director, is the shiny new toy often has a level of expectation from the business around return, and typically there's been a pretty significant investment and there's been a lot of conversations had around we need to get those quick wins and we need to take this to market. And, I've even had situations where it's been mandated, like every proposal has to include insert social media, insert digital, insert this. So I thought that was a really good point around you potentially have to still hold your nerve a bit and play the long game because, and maybe it's just around a more targeted, coordinated way of going to market to talk to those really high value, relevant clients. But I think that's definitely something where a lot of people do feel the pressure. But I think I would say, like, I'd encourage you to have a conversation with your sales leader about that because you're exactly right. The level of exclusivity can actually play into your favor rather than a spray and pray and taking it to everybody. And the other thing I thought was cool, like that whole Channel 10 thing, like this is what I think just, if somebody was to say, what is an integrated sell? I think a lot of people go, oh, it's just a bunch of different platforms. And it's like, well, yeah, but what makes something feel truly integrated is all the parts actually working together. And as simple as going, we're going to use this banner not just for display, but to actually drive people here or whatever. Like that's such an easy win, but it's such a vital thing that so many people miss when trying to do this integrated selling thing.
Well, absolutely, because if you don't do that, it's kind of like a shopping list. And when you present a shopping list, what do? You get to the end of your shopping. I don't know about you, but say I have $100 each week I've got for my groceries, and I think, oh, I don't really need to have that. Oh, that kale, probably a nice to have. I'll kick that to the curb, So yeah, absolutely something to remember. So but if you package it all together, you're showing value and meaning to each of the assets and why they deserve a place in the overall plan. Yeah, definitely.
Hey, this is Jamie. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, which is all around simplifying the complex sale. Now, we touch a little bit on launching new products in this episode, but if you are specifically looking to dive into that topic of launching a new media product, I would highly recommend you go back and have a listen to the episode with Nick Randall. Now, this was actually titled Launching a New Product. We recorded it, oddly enough, the week before the first COVID lockdown in Australia, and it's very ominous listening back to it now. It was done on site at WeWork down in Melbourne too, which was sort of the epicenter of the lockdown for a long time. Here's a little bit of a snippet of it now.
The problem I see sometimes with new product innovation is the expectation that is placed on that is just ridiculous, right? It's got to deliver X amount of revenue by month 2 or month 3, and you think, well, hang on, you just don't know. Like, you could be killing a really good idea just for the sake of trying to hit a revenue number, when really what you're trying to find out is, hey, what is this need that we haven't tapped yet that could be this huge addressable market?
So that episode was titled Launching a New Media Product. It features the incredibly insightful, very, very, very sophisticated Nick Randall. He is an absolute gun when it comes to this particular topic, and we cover a lot of that off in the episode. I would highly recommend you dive back into that, have a bit of a listen, because it's very complementary to what we're talking about. Now back to this episode.
I guess this whole thing of like single product, specialization, which you touched on, versus like that integrated sell. Like, how does a media salesperson assess which makes more sense? And I guess what I mean by that is, if you've got a brief that comes in, like, what are the hallmarks of a response where you think an integrated multi-platform response is the right way, versus what are the hallmarks of a brief where you go, this just feels like a pretty transactional, one-dimensional response, and my role here is just to do this one specific thing in the on the media plan?
Yeah, this is a difficult question. It's difficult but easy. And I think the simple part is, I think personally with experience, this becomes easier over time. You can look at a brief and you can say, after 10, 15, I think I've only been working integration for about 10 years now, but after a few years, I knew pretty quickly what was a sponsorship or integrated sell versus straight spots and dots. However, I acknowledge it can still be a challenge in day-to-day media sales. I think at the end of the day, it's common sense and you need to do what's right. I think marketing is all about building strong brands. We're not saving lives. We like to think we are, but at the end of the day, you need to be thinking about what is doing the right thing for your brand and your client, okay? Because if you're ticking both those goals, you're going to have business success in the overall campaign you're putting together. So I kind of always just like to put things into practice with situations that I've come across. And an example probably is V Junior or Event Junior. So it's a cinema design for kids by kids. We've got a few of them around Australia and we continue to roll them out. So we had a brief come our way, and it was an opportunity to target a really, really niche, younger family audience. But the thing is, it was a limited budget. There was 2 choices there. A, we could have put together a sponsorship, an integrated package, having games in a whole new area as part of that Event Junior experience in the cinemas. Or we could do a little bit more of a broader play, still connect to that audience, but just through spots and dots, and obviously reach a few more people at the same amount. Now, the client didn't have, the budget was limited. So although the integrated response would have been super, super cool, half of the budget would have been used in production. It wouldn't have been ethically the right thing to do for the client. So in that situation, the decision was obvious to do a straight spots and dots buy and to get maximum reach and awareness for the product that they were pushing. So I think it just goes down to a level common sense. And that's what marketing is, really. I always put myself in that picture,
I think that's the thing, and like the whole title of this episode too is like simplifying the complex sale. Like, I think that level of discipline is really critical, because it can be really enticing to want to throw a bunch of things in and have something that's quite sophisticated, for want of a better term. But I think in that scenario, and in many scenarios, it's like you're working with finite budget and there's a criteria that you're being evaluated against, usually in priority order. So having that element of kind of like discipline and being able to sacrifice to an extent, I think is really, really important. I mean, we touched on this earlier, but this one's kind of consistent. And this is like the amount of listener questions I get on this. It's like, I feel bad for not addressing it more, but selling or incorporating a product the company wants you to sell, but the market doesn't really want. So I'm not saying how do you sell a shit product, but what I'm saying is when you haven't got that product market fit feeling like it's really dialed in, or the proposition doesn't feel like it's landing, or it might be that there's something a bit off, is there a way to sort of do a bit of a diagnostic on how to maybe package in a certain product in order to create a bit of relevance or utility for it? Like, let's say you've got a new product you've just absorbed into your offering. It feels a bit ancillary. It feels a bit out of the bounds of what your core business is. What would be your process for thinking about that product, and how would somebody approach then incorporating it into their integrated sell?
Well, let's go back a step firstly, because I think something we could all do a little bit better with in this industry. We're doing a pretty good job, but we could do better. Is like, unless you've had some game-changing epiphany and you know how to change the world and create this ridiculously amazing product, we work with media agencies and clients every single day. They are being pitched many different products. And at the end of the day, they are the custodians to see whether our products get sold into a client. So if they're not buying into it, their clients are not going to buy into it. End of story. So I think it's really important to bring both your key clients or agency partners along the product ideation journey with you. Strategy departments, sales departments need to do that. And the success I've had with that by talking to people is quite often we end up tweaking the offering or changing the product altogether. And sometimes it doesn't even go out to market because one, the agencies have bought into it so much, it answers one of their problems they're having with their clients. They've bought it before we've even gone out and pitched it. So my advice firstly would be, you know, whatever level you are and stage you are at your career, when you're coming up with an idea, sense check it, sense check it. So by the time you've taken it out to market, you're very confident it's worked because you've spoken to lots of people and you know it's going to tick the box. But in terms of selling something or packaging up assets that, traditionally people may not have a desire for, really, I think it all goes down to solving business objectives. And I think we had a similar problem a challenge at event cinemas. We knew that candy bar sales had gone up 50% since COVID. People are loving their popcorn. People are going nuts. They're spending more than ever. But the problem was we had all these assets in the candy bar environment, but we couldn't really package them up together. Nobody wanted a floor decal, or they weren't really interested in a menu screen advertising. So what we did is we packaged up the ambient assets, the digital signage, even popcorn boxes, and we packaged it up into a domination. And we sold it similar to out-of-home companies do with their, rail dominations and the various transit ones that they've done. And we had success with that. So I think the key to selling packages and opportunities that traditionally wouldn't have been able to be sold before is firstly to find the consumer insight as into why it's going to work. And at the end of the day, if everyone's spending more on the candy bar and everyone's going to the candy bar in the movie going experience, it makes sense to have an additional customer touch point or an advertising touch point in that environment prior to going in and actually enjoying the movies. Mm-hmm. So that's it. And again, I think it's about connecting the dots and believing what you're doing and going back to the purpose of every single product within that integrated cell doing its job.
Yeah, I think that to me also, you're kind of leading with the audience, like it's an audience first proposition there too. So I think that's such a key to it. It's like, this obviously has some relevance and utility to the audience, and here's how we've kind of productized all of these different things to kind of capitalize on that and to leverage that. So I think that's that's a really interesting kind of case study there for people, because I wouldn't have thought that something like a decal and a screen and all this kind of stuff you could kind of put together, but it sounds like you could productize that quite easily once you've got that audience piece.
Yeah, absolutely, because separately a floor decal or a digital poster doesn't have as much impact standalone. It's a nice incremental reach builder with a screen strategy. But when you're packaging all those assets up and you're only selling it to one advertiser, so again, it's how you're selling it. You're not selling it to 5 advertisers. You're owning that space and having that share of voice, which everyone's wanting these days. There's so many ads always running out and about. To have that 100% share of voice in that peak cinema going area when there's a dwell time, it's going to get strong results for brands. And as a result, it's something that continues to be top of mind for all of our partners to have access to.
I think also just something as simple as giving it its own name and identity can really help. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know we're dabbling with it in out of home, and radio did it so much, as you know too in your time,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like quite literally it's 5 to 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds of airtime, and somehow we make it all feel like it's completely bespoke for an advertiser. But, even just something as simple in out of home of like a station domination, like you said, or a suburban takeover, or like giving different things different names and identities can really actually give you an edge, because it's just a really simple way of making it feel like a cohesive package. And then suddenly there is less scrutiny over individual items. Like, you're not going to take the kale out of the basket, to use your analogy before.
Yeah. But you make a really good point. And when I'm working with my team, we may be putting together, there may be a moonlight element or an avatar element, but we'll be packaging it up as a summer partnership. But to your point, the domination name, that wasn't created, like that's nothing, that we took that from out of home because we saw the success of out of home businesses doing that.
Yeah, but it conjures up a very particular image in your mind
Correct.
of what it is, right? Like it's instantly descriptive.
And that's why we did it, because we knew that media agencies would be comfortable with that and that their clients would be comfortable with that because other businesses had used that language. So quite often, I think it's about looking at the success of your competitors and the names and kind of applying something or saying, remember, in TV there was the eclipse or the takeover or the domination. It was all the same thing. It was a commercial at the same time as a website takeover within some peak tentpole program. We all had similar names, but there was comfort because we knew what we were getting.
I remember in radio for a while there, I actually got reined in for it because it was like, stop giving everything a different name, mate. Like, just call it what it is.
No, I disagree. I'm on your side.
Too much innovation. But here's another one too. And again, we're sort of talking technical and adaptive here with this particular thing, but like this whole balancing of priorities, right? So you've got a product suite that's growing. You've got more and more products to sell. Most products, whether the sales team know it or not, will typically have their own individual budget that ladders up to an overall contribution number. So for somebody who's like at the coalface selling frontline, they've got multiple products to sell. Maybe they've got multiple budgets to set, like to hit. How would you recommend, in your observation, people kind of approach that? Is it kind of the scenario of just do what's right for the client, be customer centric, and hope it all takes care of itself? Is it you have to probably kind of find a way to lead with certain products that drive the volume? Just keen to hear your kind of unfiltered perspective on all of that.
Yeah, good question. And I think, what's really benefited me is working both in sales and also in strategy, so I can see things from both perspectives. And I think it kind of comes back to that shiny new toy analogy that I was talking about earlier, which continues to be a challenge. So I think, again, you're playing the long game and you're right. You're putting your clients first because we all want to be in this industry for a long time, and reputation's important. And I think it's very important to do the right thing by your clients and the businesses that you work for, because they're more inclined to trust you, during those tougher times. So I think something that media professionals do really well when they have those challenges with different products is that they ask questions. And one key takeout, and something I used to not do when I was newer to the industry with a little bit less experience, is I didn't ask enough questions. I was always so worried about what people were thinking of me, or if I didn't come across as intelligent, I'd sometimes walk away and think, I don't really know what that new product is, so I'm not going to sell that because I don't really understand it. So I think the best salespeople think like a rookie. They recognize that they don't know everything, and they back themselves enough to think, if I'm asking a question, there's probably somebody else in the room that's thinking the same thing. And then you can work out what the priorities are, and you can package the right products to the right clients. So I don't think it's about the smash and grab, or like you said, just throwing everything at a wall and making it stick. I think it's, again, getting that new shiny toy and thinking, okay, where does this sit in my toolbox? Understanding it, putting it to the side until you need to use it.
That's the biggest probably challenge when it comes to simplifying the complex sale is there is an inherent level of pressure or prioritization that people feel they have to attach to each of the products. And I think that's where things can feel really messy. That's where you can feel overwhelmed really quickly. And I think that point you made earlier, and it's such a great point around like co-creation, like, hey, we're looking at building this thing, or we're looking at investing in this new thing. Would you be interested in having some input into it? If we were to build it, would this be something you could use? Like, sometimes those kind of questions at the right time can really unearth some market opportunity you didn't even realize. Like, we do a lot of guesswork and a lot of assumptions, and then we go and build a product, and then we take it to market and go, this ain't landing. We've put too much into this to abandon it. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And then we're thinking to ourselves, we've got to sell this because, exactly. We've justified it internally. But I think it's important to continue to have those checks in place. But no, it definitely is an ongoing challenge. Yeah.
I've got the last question on the main topic before the listener question. There's this whole thing of upselling versus cross-selling versus just responding to briefs, right? And I'm wondering if like simplification or trying to sell like multiple media products, whether upselling is actually a tool that we miss an opportunity for. And what I mean by that is like the example I use, which I hate, is when you buy a car, you buy the car, and then you have the separate person do the whole aftermarket where they sell you the tint and they sell you the leather treatment and they sell you the paint protection and they threaten to void your warranty if you don't buy it all. Is there like a more ethical media equivalent of this? Is there a way to kind of go and lead with a response, respond on brief, respond on budget, but then sort of off the back of that, actually then go in and identify different products that might actually be complementary? So almost like a post-sales kind of approach to selling more assets as opposed to just bundling them all together.
I love the car analogy. Okay, so I am a firm believer that if a client's budget is $100,000, give them something that's $100,000, because there's nothing worse than someone saying, hey, your budget's $100,000. Here's a response. If you've got $150,000, we can do this. Because that's kind of saying that your response is only 80% of what they could do. Okay, that's not us doing our job. So I'm a firm believer of putting a response together that meets the budget objectives and the best you can do for that. Okay, just like when you're going to buy a house or an apartment. I'm not going to look at something that's $200,000 more than I can afford, because that's just going to depress me. But I want the best I can get, and I want them to tell me why all these features in the house or the integrated sale tick the boxes and do what it needs to do for my client's campaign or my brand's campaign. In saying that, though, for example, Moonlight's a great example. One of our clients, they may have had 3 or 4 paid media, social media posts throughout their campaign. So social media didn't form a major part of the sponsorship because it was brand building. However, being a more of an acquisition-based client traditionally, every time they had this social media campaign running, it was doing really, really well. So in times like that, you're well within in a mid-campaign report or your weekly catch-up to say to a client, hey, your campaign's doing well. We said all these assets would do well, and tick, 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 we've done our job. However, this little area is really performing. So hypothetically, if you've got another extra $10,000 to spend and you really want to ramp it up a gear, just excuse the play on words, but yes, I think you could do that. But I don't believe in personally offering one solution and then saying if you spend more, you can have something different. It would just be tweaking and perfecting what they already have. So having a stain-resistant spray on the car versus the traditional polish, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And like, even just reflecting on your answer there, like the post-campaign reports are always a really good opportunity to introduce different thinking or different products for the next opportunity, or even like here's something to consider for next time. So again, to your point around playing the long game, like this stuff, I think a lot of people get discouraged really easy because things don't land or the market doesn't want it. And then we almost kind of miss an opportunity to just keep kind of working the thing just very consistently, but not sort of not hammering it, not drilling it too hard, which I think at times can be easier said than done.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
All right, listener question time.
I can't ask my sales manager that.
Hey Jamie, I work for a media sales house. We sell a very random mix of products from trade media, place-based media, lots and lots of digital products, and even some Chinese language media like magazines and newsletters. We need to keep the profile of all these products high with our media agencies and make sure that people think of calling us whenever they have a need for our various products. As agencies need to be across so much already, and most reps have a simple product offering, do you have any tips for keeping our product offering top of mind without just taking people through a cred deck, aka big shopping list of products every month?
Wow.
The infamous shopping list.
It's too late at night in Sydney to hit you with that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's on the weekend. Firstly, this listener is so lucky. They have so many different products to sell and obviously a very unique mix. So I'm a little bit jealous. I think it's a good problem to have. But so great question. I think, speaking from myself, I oversee 5 different business departments, from gift cards in Woolworths and Coles to private events to sponsorships to on-screen advertising, and plus over 400 movies released every year. So there's always something in the pipeline, which keeps us all on our toes. But as media sales professionals, I think we all know we're really hard workers. I know we say we are, but I think we work harder than everybody. But I think we need to strive to work smarter and not harder. And I've never been a fan of the shopping list products, because at the end of the day, we are the subject matter experts in relation to the business that we are representing. And we need to have confidence that what we're selling is the best solution for a brand or product. So I think B2B marketing really comes into play here. And this is something that I've seen really help businesses that have lots of different products that they're selling. Firstly, a case study. Nothing sells opportunities better than a case study. Very hard for the listener question to sell something from a Chinese language media to a magazine. Very, very difficult. However, if you could put it together on one page, a case study or a short video showcasing how all the different assets were packaged together to get a result for a client, that's a really easy win. So whenever I go out to clients, I don't show them the cred deck, because they don't need to know how many cinemas we've got. They know they're the biggest. But what I do show them is how we brought brands' campaigns to life through our various assets. Okay, that's definitely one. Another example, and something we've had success with, is as simple as email signatures. Okay, so having 1 month, we might be focusing on birthday parties. The next month, the email signature could be focusing on Moonlight going to market. So using what you have every single day as a way to bring to life the different opportunities that you have as a business. Even corporate newsletters, really effective way every month to have a spotlight on all the different products that you sell and some key success stories from brands that choose to partner with you and the success that they've had. So I think B2B marketing plays a big role, and it takes the pressure off the sales reps having to continually be going to new clients and presenting, the same cred deck with the same level of enthusiasm 6 years into a role.
Yeah, such a good call, mate. Like that, I call it air cover. Like your trade marketing can give you that air cover and can hit the market.
I'm going to steal that. Thank you for that.
Combos. No, you're welcome. Yep. But it's funny because that's such a it's such a different perspective, and this is why I'm so glad I had you on, because I sort of grappled with this one when I went back to them, because what I remember saying was probably more of a sales directory thing of, well, clearly there's a strategy the business has, right? Like, you're not just going to take everything. There's clearly some common traits, or there's some commonality across these products, whether you know it or not, that the business has decided to represent these products. Very rare do I find a media sales house. Typically, they're kind of defined by the geographic location, like we're based in Brisbane and we represent all the stuff that doesn't have a presence here. Mm-hmm. But even within that, you still have a very specific style or type of product, typically, whether it be we sell a lot of regional media, we sell more ambient activation stuff, we specialize in more digital stuff. So for me, I think the big thing would be going, maybe there's like an identity that your media sales house has to create by showing a level of kind of commonality to the assets, right? Because what that does is it allows you to have a really simple proposition to market, to go, hey, we are the specialists in this. If you have a brief that has these hallmarks, that is probably when you should engage us, because chances are we have multiple products that would be relevant for you. And like a SWOT, like literally a SWOT analysis, like the point here of, we're competing against markets that have very simple propositions. It's like, cool, so your competitive set. Do a SWOT and you'll probably identify those areas where you've got a clear lane where you're quite differentiated. So maybe there is like almost like an elevator pitch that could be worked up as well.
Yeah.
Just
I love
to kind
that.
of bind it together.
Yeah, I love the elevator pitch. You're right, because what do they always say? If you can't describe something in 25 words or explain it in 25 words, you don't understand it. And you're right. There is a reason why a business has chosen all these products. We know times are even more challenging and they're going to get even more challenging. Yeah, you're right. Businesses wouldn't be purchasing other businesses if they didn't think they'd add value to what they're already doing. Yeah, so understanding that from a business perspective. But to your point, like what we were talking about before, I think it comes down to asking questions and really understanding what you're doing before you're going out to market and not just regurgitating information.
Yeah, and I love that case study thing. Like, case studies are just the best thing in the world, and they are so undervalued when you finally get them too. Like, I used to say to reps, like, if you're sick and tired of talking about the case study, I think your customers are only just cottoning onto it. Like, you want to have it to a point where you're so sick of telling the story, it's like only at that point is it actually probably starting to cut through and get some traction.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
All right, well, we are at the end, but I wanted to, a couple of things. First of all, thank you, because I know that I have put some demands on your time. It's a bit late at night. Second thing was, I'm just keen to know if you've got any sort of general parting thoughts on this particular topic. You've obviously worked in it for a long time across a number of different publishers. What would be, I guess, some things you would give the audience to take away to apply immediately, or some things for them to consider?
Firstly, if you ever get the opportunity to work in integrated sales, or like we all are really these days, absolutely go for it. It's the most fun I've ever had. But I think, key things is probably to think like a rookie, but to back yourself. I think integrated products and selling these integrated offerings often fall short because, try what we've been discussing all night. We don't take the time to truly understand what we're selling, and more importantly, who we should be pitching it to. I think the best salespeople are the people that connect the dots. So when you're putting together an integrated response, think about how everything connects together, okay? And be able to confidently explain that to your clients as to why you included it as part of the integrated sell. But most importantly, have fun. We're working in one of the best industries. My team is selling movies. Who doesn't want to talk about movies? And I think, when you're having fun, you're more inclined to translate opportunities into sales because your partners want to be, on the journey and on the ride with you. So let's not lose sight of that, okay? It can be stressful, but let's just enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of us coming out of the last couple of years just have a completely fresh perspective on, how good things are and how much opportunity there is and how fortunate we are to work in the industry we're in. So beautiful sentiment to finish on. And I did want to ask you, I know you do some lecturing outside of your core role as well, or some tutoring and lecturing as well? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, yes. It's the highlight of my week. So I've been doing it for ICAT, used to be called Clare College, for just over a year now. And I'm fortunate enough to teach final year marketing students. So the great thing is that the subject that I lecture and shoot for is the major project unit. And the reason why I enjoy it so much is the students are taking everything they've learnt throughout the 3 years in their marketing and advertising degrees, and they get to create a product and bring the product to life over those 12 weeks. So I encourage anyone, if they'd like to be a mentor for my students, to please reach out to me. I'm always looking for mentors. It's a really enriching experience. And to my point, it's the highlight of my every week. And pretty much at the end of the 12 weeks, they present to an industry panel, which are pretty much my mates who I call up to help me out on the day and present their ideas. But a lot of those students have actually gone on to bring those ideas to life, and they're quite entrepreneurial. So I get a lot out of it. Thanks for asking me that question. Yeah.
No, it's very cool. Well, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes, and I'm sure people will connect and reach out.
Yeah, please do.
And Claire, just thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really enjoyed the chat, and would love to have you back on in the future too. I feel like we could probably go right into the weeds on this topic. So
I could talk about it all night.
I'm sure there'll be some future reps we could do.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
Claire.
Thank you.